Hello, I'm FPX and welcome back to the video. Today I want to talk about some of the biggest differences between American people and British people, specifically when it comes to language, because when you open up a new account on something and it asks for your language, it will often give you two choices, right? British English and American English. And you might think this is weird because Americans can understand British people and British people can understand Americans just fine, right? So why are they even different languages? And obviously there's a bunch of spelling differences, and that's a thing that's kind of a thing, but it's also worth keeping in mind that there is also differences in just basic words. There's lots of fun British exclusive words that aren't used in American English, and I figured, given that if you are an American who wants to visit the UK, or even who wants to visit any other former UK colony where they speak British English, or just country in the world where they speak British English as opposed to American English, you might want to know some of the key differences. So if you don't want to stick out, you can use this advice. Or if you're like the opposite, you want to stick out, you want to be like, I want to show people I'm an American immediately, ignore all of these things and deliberately use the American word instead of the British word. Your choice. Either way, I hope you all enjoy the video. You can like it if you do like it, because it helps out the channel a lot. Let us know you do like the fun little face cam video. This is just a useful little guide because some of my American friends are coming to the UK for the first time, and there's a lot of just tiny things where I'm like, you know what, this is something you need to know, because it's not just necessarily language. There's a lot of things attached to language that you might find useful. Like, for instance, tea. Tea in the UK, it's the drink we drink a lot. Oh, we love the tea so much that we started an opium war in China, which is true, by the way. But like, we like tea in the UK a lot, except me apparently. But when someone says tea, they're not necessarily referring to the drink. And it's worth saying, oh yeah, there's a meal called tea in the UK, and a lot of people when they hear that, they're like, oh, afternoon tea, that's a thing that like some tourist book tried to sell me. Oh, I'm gonna pay XX amount of money to go do that. And it's worth keeping in mind, I love afternoon tea, it's a great thing, but I've done it like 3 times in my life maybe. It's not like a regular thing like, oh, every afternoon we'll get the tea pastry table thing out and we'll, you know, eat the little pastries. No, it's not a regular thing. It's great. Again, afternoon tea is a wonderful thing, but it's not a regular British thing. When British people refer to tea as a meal, they usually mean the third meal in a day. Like, oh, there's breakfast, there's lunch, and then there's tea. Some people say tea, some people say supper, some people just say dinner. I'll be honest, I say dinner because, like, we should probably have standard terms for this, but it's worth keeping in mind, when people say tea in the UK, which is the overwhelmingly most used word, they usually are referring to the third meal, unless there is, like, a drink clearly specified, or unless it's a situation where a drink is specified. But I'm just saying, at the end of the day, tea equals a meal in the UK, as well as a drink, as well as that weird you know, like tradition where you drink a bunch of pastries with your tea. So I guess you eat the pastries with your tea. Although if you put them in the tea, you could kind of drink them that way. But yeah, that is something worth keeping in mind. Also worth keeping in mind, this is the one that frustrates me. Chips, right? What do chips mean to you, Mr. International person watching this video? They mean, oh yeah, bag of potato things, you pick them out, you have them. Oh, isn't that great? Like, love a bag of Lays, as you call it there. It's Walkers here in the UK. But here, we call those crisps. Those are crisps. They're very crispy, you know, very thin, very crispy potatoes. Chips to us refer to like very kind of fat fries. So like what you would call fries, you would call chips here if it's fat. And then if it's like really thin and like American style fries, it's called fries. So there's fries, there's chips, and there's crisps. It upsets me to no end when I go to America and they're like, oh, would you like, you know, chips of that? And I'm like, oh yeah, chips would be good this time of day. And they give me a bag of crisps and it's like, I don't, you know, like, what is this? Like, I don't want this in the slightest. I wanted some chips. I got excited for a nice warm plate of delicious British chips, and I got this instead. And yeah, that's why fish and chips isn't like fish and some weird potato snack, which I can't imagine anyone thinks it is. It's very thick, British, like weird, I guess, fried, I think, chips. Weird thing. Give it a try sometime if you are here. But chips, very different. And it annoys me to no end when people are like, oh, I have a bag of chips. It's like, no, you don't have a bag of chips unless you do. Oh, anyway, that said, it's the one thing that drives me insane because whenever I go overseas, also it happens in reverse here. It's the one word where I will start a riot. I will overthrow the entire, you know, like system we have if it fixes this whole crisps and chips dilemma, because it's annoying. It's a tiny thing, but it's annoying. Also, on a similar kind of line, we have the fact that biscuits are a national snack here. You might have heard, oh yeah, you have biscuits and tea. And if, again, biscuits in American terms, that's like, wait, isn't that the weird thing that goes in gravy, which is also different, by the way? No, biscuits here, nice snack, like a digestive, like a little biscuit you put in your hand. Very different to like one of those, again, weird clumped, I don't even know how to describe the American biscuit. What you would call a cookie is usually called a biscuit here, but what we call a cookie is like a very particular type of biscuit, like really kind of thin, light, maybe chocolatey, you know, like a chocolate chip cookie is what we're referring to. That has to be most types of cookies. It doesn't have to have chocolate chips. It's just worth keeping in mind, cookies, specific subset off biscuits. Biscuits are just a generic all-round thing, which you'll put in your tea to go back to earlier. See, there we go, look how wonderful this is. Other small words that you'll notice, again, especially in, former British colonies, I noticed, like, in Hong Kong, for instance, the signs say, they say rubbish instead of trash. Your trash in America is, like, a broad word that covers, like, anything that you don't want. There's rubbish if it's like, oh, I'm going to drink my can and throw it on the floor, or like my bag of things, throw it on the floor. Now it's rubbish. It's rubbish if it's a thing, but when it's on the floor, it's litter. You're littering when you put litter on the floor. You can pick up litter and put it in the bin. So anyway, just simple thing. What is trash in America is like two separate things: rubbish, litter. It's kind of a key thing. Like, oh yeah, I've got some rubbish I need to put in a bin, or there's some litter that's on the ground that should be put in a bin really, but it was put on the floor instead. Key difference right there. And again, it goes in a bin, not in a trash can or in a trash thing or in a rubbish bin or whatever. There's a lot of words for it, but just long story short, there's your thing. Oh, also the word rubbish as a whole. I know a lot of Americans just love the sound of this word. That's what we call, again, all of that stuff together. If you want to say a trash equivalent for just anything that's like throwawayable, is that a word? Then rubbish is a good catch-all word. Also, it's called the pavement on the side of the road, not the sidewalk, I want to say. Like, you don't walk on the sidewalk, you walk on the pavement. Just, again, that's one of those words in particular that gives you away, really, really clearly. Like, I'm going to walk on the sidewalk over here. American. You gotta be like, oh, the pavement, because it's pave, like mint on the side of the thing. Also, this weirds me out about American shows, just to take a tiny cultural difference, but I've seen it in America too. The gaps for water to go underneath the way water, like, drains out of a city, over here, there's little, drains with, like, grates along them, so nothing could fall in there. Like, you could put your hand in, maybe, but, like, that's how water drains from the street. In America, they should have huge gaps under the curbs that people can fit into, and you see those images of, like, a clown under there, and you're like, no, none of that stuff. That's scary. It's a lot better here, I think, although you can lose your phone in there and then get it trapped, but still, small price to pay for no clowns in the sewers. Or, yeah, key thing to keep in mind. So, with that said, let's move on to the next one, because sweets and candy is another vaguely annoying one, I would say, because when Americans say candy, they're referring to a huge variety of things. Again, it's like, one, the word just isn't really used here unless you're referring to, like, again, movie candy or like a very particular type of sweet here. But usually, over here, you say sweets for something that is sweet, like Starburst, Skittles, that's sweets, because it's like, again, like a sweet type of candy. Whereas if you're referring to a Mars bar, that is a chocolate bar, or chocolate, or something like that. There's not this catch-all term, besides like sugary snack or something, I don't know what to say, but like, I guess a snack would probably cover it, but there's no catch-all term for like, oh, a piece of candy. What does a piece of candy mean? Are you giving me a mini Snickers or a small bag of Skittles? Because those are very different things. I have different moods for those two different kind of categories, and I don't understand how you can have the same word for it, but it is a key one. Don't say candy, gives yourself away immediately. Two different categories, and I like it better that way. I like the, oh yeah, can I have some sweets? You're gonna get something sweet. Whereas when you want something chocolatey, you're like, oh, I need like a quarter of a meal or so, you get a Mars bar or something. There's none of this confusion where like, oh, I'm really hungry, here's a 2-kilogram bag of Skittles. That never happens over here. I'm sure it happens at least once over there. So yeah, just keep that in mind. Also, along a similar line, while we're talking about sugary snacks, I have a can here of a Pepsi from America. When I last went to New Jersey in like June, as you can see, it's Pepsi made with real sugar. And that's exciting, right? Do you want to know what we call Pepsi made with real sugar in the UK? This will shock you, but we call it Pepsi. Would you believe that? Same with there's like Mountain Dew throwback. There's a lot of other throwback drinks in America where it's like, we're using real sugar, and we know you like the taste, but sorry, this is like a rare, limited opportunity product that costs double as much, because in the UK, we use sugar in our drinks. In America, they advertise it as sugar sometimes, but they use HFCS, I want to say, high fructose corn syrup, because I want to say there's the agricultural subsidies in America, different set of programs basically. In the EU as a whole, or Europe, let's just say, to keep things simple, we subsidize different crops to what you subsidize in America, which means that it's cheaper to use American, I want to say it's, again, cane. There's a really weird thing like that. It's different sources of sugar, depending on your constant, and that's why there's HFCF. But honestly, in my opinion, sugar tastes better. I mean, in a lot of Americans' opinions too, it tastes better. Because over here, we don't have made with real HCFS Pepsi. We don't have that. Not a thing, because no one wants it. This actually tastes pretty good, by the way. So yeah, also keep in mind, the other thing, while we're on the same kind of page, as well as using real sugar. Wow, there's real sugar in that sugary drink. Most things in the UK are less sugary dense than in America. This is UK kind of based, but it will cover a lot of Asian countries as well. In America, everything is very sugary, and in the UK and in Europe as a whole, it used to be the same kind of levels. Like American products got exported into Europe, they'd be roughly the same. However, these days, for the last I want to say 7 or 8 years, because sugar is like a real problem for, can we all agree sugar's a real problem? The UK has been slowly reducing the sugar in drinks. It's like a mandatory, or I think it's voluntary, but it's like try to reduce your sugar by 4 to 10% every year, and you don't notice when your sugar goes down 4% a year, and then after 7 years, it still tastes the same because you've slowly adjusted. But if you go from America to the UK, our drinks will taste weak, and vice versa. If you go to America, everything tastes amazing because it's so much worse for you, and that just tastes good. So, key difference here, if you try any drinks like Pepsi made with real sugar, or Pepsi, then it's over here, it's going to taste a little bit, I would say worse, but different, let's say it, to make it a positive change, because everyone loves the UK. Next up, we have the fact that this shocked me on the internet. So again, I grew up on the internet, I like to say, and one of the things about the internet is that a lot of Americans have this strong belief that oh yeah, the word that you can't say, the fag, that is the word that has so much hatred behind it. We gotta reclaim that word. It's this big, huge debate of how bad saying that word to someone is, right? You know what fag means here? It's a common word when you go for a cigarette. My friend yesterday came to my house, he's like, oh, gonna go outside for a fag. It's not at 100% common, it's not even probably 50% used, but it is a really common word. It's used all the time like that. If you say fag to someone, it's a really, really casual little thing. It's not a swear word, unlike this demonic word it is in America. Some of you right now are like, oh my god, I can't believe you said that. You said that word. And it's geez, chill. Different cultures, different words. It's the same thing with there's a few words I say, every now and then someone's like, damn is a swear word where I live, Toycat, and it's well, I mean, maybe you shouldn't make it one because, it's short for damnation, which is... Anyway, with that said, long story short, fag isn't a curse word. Curse words are different. Also, it's called cursing, not cussing. Boom, there you go. Or swearing is what it's usually called here. Fun facts of Toycat. Next up, currency. So, currency time, because this is the thing that annoys me. That doesn't have to, if you don't annoy people just that tiny bit, because if we're being honest, call British currency what you want, as long as you call it by its real name. If you're like, so what's this $5 English thing all about? I don't know what this is. That's bad. Don't do that. Just admit, okay, our currency, it's called the pound. It's not called the euro. Oh, are they in that whole euro thing? I guess you get this a lot less because of the whole Brexit stuff. But, long story short, no, the UK is not in that whole euro thing. It was a big issue in the UK to some degree too. And it became a big issue with the whole Brexit thing of oh, now it's the opposite side. But long story short, British people, not pro-euro. The euro is, I've said before, euro is a very flawed currency, blah, 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 blah. But long story short, British people, not in the euro. It's easy, it's a pound. It's the 3rd or 4th most widely traded currency in the world. It's a big currency, big deal. No, it's called the pound. Anyway, so now we know it's called the British pound. It's not called any of the other things. And the way Americans say pound, I don't know why, it rubs me the wrong way. So just pound, just pound, easy, one syllable, not the pound with 6 syllables spread in there. No, it's the pound. 5 pounds, 10 pounds, easy, they're sorted. So here's the thing about it that you kind of need to know. 1, some people call it quid. In fact, it's very commonly called a quid, but try not to join them on that because I know it sounds weird. Some people might not. So just call it the pound, oh, £1 coin. Yeah, that's a quid, mate, or something like that. It's fine. Just accept that. Second of all, a lot of people, in fact, most people, this is not a £5 note. This is a fiver. You can call it a fiver too. The place I spotted this was the Bank of England governor. He's a Canadian. When he says fiver, you can spot oh, he says it so smoothly, but you spot the oh, why is he saying that? It sounds weird in his accent. You can call it a fiver if you want to, and this is what most people call this. This is a £5 note or a fiver. This is a £10 note or a tenner. Also worth keeping in mind is the fact that our 5 and our 10s are made of plastic. If you try and tear it, I'm literally, I don't know, you're seeing just how hard I tried right there. No damage. It's made from plastic. You can throw it through the washing machine if you really want. They don't tear. You have to literally use your teeth to tear these. I've tried really hard, but don't tear them. But still, have a little bit of a fun game. Try and tear our currency. And also, you can take a selfie through it if you really want. Look, I'm over here. Wait, can you see my... You can't. But it's transparent a little bit on the inside there. Oh, let's do the entire video through the Queen's head from here on out. So, yeah, one last thing to keep in mind is the fact that in the UK... we use very small denominations very commonly. The The 5 is our smallest note, it's worth keeping in mind. There's a 5, there's a 10, there's a 20, and then there's a 50. However, even though, so 50 is the very highest note we have, a lot lower than most other countries. Like in Germany, they use the 500 on a regular basis, or in Europe, I should say, but mostly in Germany. Whereas in the UK, we have a £50 note as our highest note. However, don't get these notes out. Even if you're like, I'm going to bring $1,000 with me. Is that a lot? Or £1,000 with me? That's not too much. I'll get 20, £50 notes. One, don't get a bunch of these. In fact, have one of these maybe as a fun souvenir. But keep in mind, most British people haven't interacted with these on a regular basis. If you ask someone like, oh yeah, so you have a £50 note on you? No. The answer's going to be no. When was the last time you had a £50 note? And they might say, when I was 15, I think I got some because I was paid in them for some reason. Again, some people are like that. However, these are the currency of like, you know, like these are only for high value transactions. Like, oh, I guess I've got to pay £2,000 or something. Sure, bring 40 of these along. If you're paying for something less than 50, use a couple of 20s. The 20 is the most traded note in the UK. Most ATMs only do it, you know, £20 notes out. And just long story short, you don't use these. A lot of places literally won't accept them because they're that uncommon. It looks cool, maybe as a fun souvenir or whatever, but it's not widely used. And even showing it in this video, some people are like, oh wow, yeah, I haven't seen a £50 note because they're not commonly used. So with that said, I just want to finally finish up here with my last annoyance because, you know, this whole video is just like a guide to helping you annoy toy cat less, and I guess people in other British countries less. But the thing that upsets me, and I don't even know why, but it's like, you know, when people come to England, they're like, oh yeah, or come to the UK, let's say, and they're like, oh yeah, I'm really loving insert city I went to. I made some friends there at the pub that the locals go to, which not really a thing, but you know, I try to be like, oh yeah, I'm sure the locals do go to that particular pub in the heart of London, but you know, because London is a tourist-heavy city. Same with a lot of things like that. I made some friends there, and they taught me some slang. So rather than a bread roll, how about you want a bap, mate? And it's like, man, so many of these, so many words in the UK are region-based. I know this is ridiculous, but so many of the words are like, oh yeah, so bap. I want to say that's the one they use in the north. Down here, there's this own separate word. There's different words for like simple things like bread rolls. Just keep in mind, there are regional words. If you want to be like, oh look, I know your slang or whatever, check if the word is at least regional. Like tea and supper, you know? Like, don't be like, oh, want a tea, mate? Look how great I am. No. Don't do that. Just use the word casually. Don't try and act like it's a big deal, because you might get it wrong. Again, the interesting thing about British English is that all British people understand American English because it's in movies and stuff, and some British people use American English just in day-to-day life by accident. Like, you know, even though a lawyer here isn't called a lawyer, it's called a solicitor. We call them lawyers a lot of the time because we watch American, you know, you watch Suits or something, you're like, oh yeah, I'll go draft my lawyer for this one. There's a lot of fun examples like that, and just fun facts. So with that said, I want to, you know, like toy cat videos, I try to be a little bit educational in these. So let's give you the fun fact on why American English and British English are different. Because I've just gone over like how not to annoy toy cat when you come to the UK and or Singapore, which is basically the UK in my heart. Well, I mean, it's basically the same as the UK in my heart is what I'm trying to say there. I mean, we're probably not going to take it over anytime soon, but let's talk about why words are different, because you might notice there's a lot of words that seem the same, but they're not on the surface. So in America, they say an airplane. I'm going to get on the airplane, but I said it wrong there. I'm going to get on the airplane. However, here it's the aeroplane. And you barely notice that like syllable. It sometimes is just like skipped over, like aeroplane. Airplane. And it's like, oh yeah, the airplane. So you can say stuff like that. Why are there so many words like that? Why are there spelling differences? Because America only split from the UK 200 years ago. So how did all these huge differences develop? And why didn't they develop with Canada and with New Zealand and with Singapore and Hong Kong? Why is the British English the same across the world except America? And I looked into it once because I was super curious. And as it turns out, do you know the Merriam-Webster dictionary? It's a pretty well-known dictionary in America. That was set up by a guy named Noah Webster, and he was an American nationalist before America separated from the UK, because it used to be a British colony, of course. He was an American nationalist that really didn't like Europeans. He hated, so when America went independent, he really valued what America was over what European countries was. He didn't like European countries and, oh, they're filthy, whatever's going on there. He believed in an American state and like America, whatever, you know, the original kind of idea of that thought. And this is the reason they have their own English, because that guy happened to write a dictionary and he just decided, oh, I'm going to simplify English down. but when he was simplifying English, he even admits like a lot of his goal was not only to simplify it and make it easier, but to make Americans a distinct culture from British people. He didn't want it to be like, oh yeah, there's British people over there, there's British people over here. He wanted it to be like, there's Americans over here and there's British people over there. And yeah, there you go. That's a fun fact. That's why America has its own English, because they forced a dictionary with new English words just after, a little bit after independence, I want to say, maybe a bit before, and that is why American English separated so much from British English. It was a conscious choice. It wasn't like a slow drift apart. You know, the reason that Swedish and Danish are slightly different is because over 500, 600 years, they slowly fell apart so that you can understand each other, but loads of words are different. In the UK and America, America was like, one American was like, we're gonna drift this apart. We're gonna turbo boost away from the UK in terms of English. And I've always thought that's such a weird thing that's caused so many problems just because this one guy was like, I don't like Europeans. And it's like, you are a European. You know that's how America was found. Anyway, with that said, thank you very much for watching this video. I like America a lot. Hopefully, if you ever visit the UK, you'll like it a lot. If you want to visit New Zealand, you'll probably like that a lot too. If you go to Singapore, you know, most British colonies are pretty great places. Like, what if you go down the list of like, I guess, non-African ones, because that's where it gets a little bit dangerous. But if you go down the list of British colonies, there are a great list of places to, I guess, former colonies. You know, this is a controversial video. Anyway, thank you very much for watching this video. Go check out Singapore. This video is sponsored by Singapore. Go to Singapore with coupon code TOYCAT to get 10% off at checkout. And yeah, I'll see you all in the next video. Goodbye. Oh, everyone wants to go to Singapore for Crazy Rich Asians. That's why that's of interest. And you might want some British English for that. There you go. Fun fact. Bye.